All right, let's start with the Aja Wilson stuff because everyone just loves when we really talk at length about the WNBA.
WNBA analysis. Dun, dun, dun. I defended in my article. I felt like I had to clear the air. I felt like I had to defend my interest in the topic as a broader subject. I did. And there was maybe one paragraph in there that to me, it was cathartic to write. And it was because I get this feedback of why do you care? Why do you care if Nike has had Caitlin Clark signed since 2022, had her signed for now over a year as a pro and hasn't done a single major ad with her? You know, why is this something that you will, stick in your craw, that you'll discuss, and that there hasn't been a signature shoe out, that it appears that
you can't win, Ethan, so win.
Yeah, that's what an ad campaign that was in the Super Bowl. You can't win, ladies, so win. Why? And I think it's about something bigger than just the WNBA or about Clark or about Aja Wilson. And it's that some of these really silly ideas that we might call wokeness or social justice, there is a taboo among people in our cohort, Ryan, about just admitting that they do have a major influence on things that happen. A lot of people who even roll their eyes at some of the stuff now post Vibe Shift still would hesitate to say that it actually could cause a major corporation to destroy tons of value, or that it would make Disney create movies that will help tank their stock price because nobody wants them. There's this weird assumption that these ideas are out there and some people fervently believe in them to a religious degree, but it's not going to mess with the money. Like, corporations are going to corporation. They're going to try to make money. I think this is fascinating because it shows that Nike is overtly, its management is too enthralled to this stuff and too afraid of offending people to make money. And it's an example of this here where they're doing, I would say, a Potemkin village of a shoe launch of Aja Wilson because they're worried about backlash from her and others regarding Caitlin Clark getting elevated. It's just amazing to me. She is the 5th best-selling WNBA jersey, and people are seriously coming to me and saying that, oh, there's a market for this. This makes sense. This doesn't make sense. That you can't. I don't know if you can really sell a signature shoe with the 5th most popular NBA player, let alone WNBA player.
You can.
And you think, well, that's a different topic.
I don't know, like, how does Kyrie do with like his Chinese shoe deal or whatever? I feel like
we're talking about the major brands, and Kyrie is a good example here because in 2014, he was a really successful shoe salesman while not being necessarily a top 5 player, because shoe sales aren't about how efficient you are and how much you help winning. It's about flair and charisma, highlights, everything else. And Aja Wilson doesn't have that. She's like a 20 and 10. She's like a Tim Duncan. So, I'm not going to recapitulate the entire article as I wrote it, but the New York Times article written by Tanya Ganguly interviewing with Aja Wilson about this whole, why did it take her so long to get a shoe? Is it true that Clark was delayed to finally get Aja a shoe? And Aja Wilson says that it's 100% racism that some people think that she's less marketable. Ryan, go. Where do you want to take this? You had a little tease for us.
Well, the tease that I'm referring to, I'll get that out of the way. What is like the responsibility of Tanya once she goes to Nike for comment about you, for you to respond to their response? Because I don't want to reveal too much, but we've got a group chat and you found out about this like days after the story came out. So it wasn't something, it was not, it was more like skipping, the story landed like a skipping pebble as opposed to throwing a boulder in a lake. And so it's like an interesting thing because she is writing their response to you. Should you get the opportunity to respond to that? And I don't know the answer.
I don't know. I wasn't offended. I should say, I don't think that Tanya Ganguly did anything bad to me. I don't think that I was really criticized. I think Nike was given a chance to comment and contradict me. I know I'm right, by the way. So that's one of the reasons why maybe I don't feel it so much. I've heard enough. I have enough sourcing. I might have some experience breaking stories about Nike that Nike doesn't particularly like. So, my assertion that the marketing of Asia Wilson has something to do with the delay of Caitlin Clark is something that I will stand by and stick with. And if they want to contradict it and say it has nothing to do with anything and signature shoes take time, okay, they've made shoes and launched shoes, rookie season of certain athletes, whatever.
Here's what I don't get about the whole thing. Look, they can
Yeah.
do an Asia Wilson shoe and promote it. And I think maybe if you do like a cost benefit analysis, like there's probably like an opportunity cost there, and maybe they do lose a little marketing it, but
Yeah.
maybe it's like an insignificant amount. Why can't they do it on parallel tracks where they're like, okay, we're releasing this Asia Wilson shoe because we believe in her excellence and think she does deserve this recognition, but we're also going to launch the Caitlin Clark shoe in like a prompt order and get it out there because there's clearly like a massive demand for this. And like, that it's this idea that she's definitely going to be that huge like meal ticket for 15 years. We don't know that. She can have a Jason Tatum moment in her first game on Saturday.
Mm-hmm.
And then all of a sudden she's on the shelf for a year and we don't know how explosive she'll be when she gets back. Like there are all sorts of the women's basketball players have leg injuries. Like it happens to them at like a substantial rate. And so the longer you wait on something like this is I think a big risk. And so that's what I don't understand is why Nike can't do both. Why does it have to be this celebrating Asia Wilson for an indefinite period tour while they're withholding the product that the public clearly wants a lot more?
It's a great point. And I think it comes back to the weird ideology. And it's bizarre. It's ironic because here we are, right-wing fascists that we are, Ryan, suggesting that maybe the most popular women's basketball player should be promoted. That's the misogynistic or whatever take that we have here. But they're just enthralled to this idea that there's unfairness, and unfairness is the big thing. This was a lot of their messaging. There's a lot of their obsession, and it's unfair for Caitlin to get this publicity when Asia Wilson is better, that Asia Wilson has won a championship, that she has MVPs. That's unfair. So we have to deal with the unfairness. And that's the thing that we have to care about because there's backlash in some corner of the internet. And why can't they fast track the Caitlin Clark thing and also give Wilson her shoe? That's the reason. And it's bizarre because if the Tiger Woods phenomenon is happening, or we go back in time to when it was happening, and it's early, and we talk to whatever executive at Nike in an interview, and we go, let's say Time Magazine or whoever goes, wow, isn't it great that Tiger Woods is the biggest thing in golf right now? They would say, hell yeah. Yeah, it's amazing. It's so cool. If you were to go to the Nike executives now and say that in an interview, do you think they would agree or do you think they would get scared?
I don't know, but I also want to push back on this point that she like hasn't accomplished anything because she went to a college program at Iowa that does not have pedigree in women's basketball. And she reached the finals. She reached another Final Four. Her team was the only team to beat South Carolina in like a 2-year period. This idea that, okay, so she didn't win a title, but look at like her teammates versus look at like Asia Wilson's teammates in college, or look at Paige Becker's teammates in college.
No, I agree.
Clark is not accomplished is really like, I think you have to stretch to get there.
No, I know. She's not Anna Kournikova. She's one of the best players in women's basketball and had maybe the most decorated college career ever. But we're not going to get into a debate about a lack of a title with that team, meaning that she can't be considered blah, 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 whatever. It's just this strange dynamic where she's got so much attention that it's caused jealousy and resentment. And then the people tasked with actually benefiting from that attention play defense against the attention because they're so sensitive to that resentment. And to the point where they do a lot more promotion of Paige Beckers. I was just checking out the Nike basketball IG page. They've done more advertising. And anybody saying maybe Clark doesn't want to do advertising, she's done multiple Gatorade advertisements. This seems like an emphasis from Nike. They're uncomfortable with the amount of attention she's gotten because WNBA players and people within women's basketball are uncomfortable with that attention. It's just bizarre that that's what they're reacting to.
I feel like they could make like a logo for her in 5 minutes, slap it on a bunch of t-shirts, and they'd be printed in a week. Like
that's what other companies are doing. That's what Dick's Sporting Goods is doing. Because they want to make money, they're going to the masses and saying, in an unprecedented move, we have Caitlin Clark merch in every single, literally all of our stores. That's what they're doing.
Nike didn't have like enough jerseys for her at the start of last season, so it's not just the shoe. There's like a million ways where they've left a fortune on the table, and you can't understand it because these companies, like how many times has it been drilled in our minds that these corporations will act at the behest of making money for the shareholder? And that's not what they're doing at all.
No, if you have enough people who, as I put it, I'm probably butchering my own phrasing on it, but if you have enough people who are obsessed with the idea that it's unfair that X celebrity endorser is getting attention, they'll focus more on the unfairness than on benefiting from that attention, even if their mandate should be benefiting from that attention. That's what's happened. I think it's clear. I think people push back and argue, maybe because they've got a legitimate disagreement or they see it differently, but I think that a lot of people just can't imagine this is the case, Ryan. They can't imagine that the biggest sports apparel company in the world is actively trying not to make money.
Well, the thing is, like,
it's hard to imagine.
There's a lot of these companies, and we've observed some of them in media, where management, even at the highest levels, so there's a term in pro wrestling when you go into business for yourself. Like in a pro wrestling match, even if you're the winner, you're supposed to like make the loser usually look pretty good. It's like in a way, it's a team game, even though there's scripted outcomes. You're supposed to put your opponent over, and you're like the person who loses is like doing a service and like elevating the winner. But there's like a term called going into business for yourself when you don't abide by those like kind of axioms of the genre, and you just try to make yourself look good. I think that there's a lot of these people at Nike who want to feel like, oh, well, I'm making a big difference with my ideology. And it's like there's a lot of, it's a weird thing to describe, but it's like almost a tribe of the people with this ideology where it doesn't necessarily matter what company you work for at that given time. They're all on the same proverbial team. They all go hire each other at different companies. And so they're not really representing Nike as much as they're representing their own kind of self-interested clique. Does that make sense?
Yeah, but I don't even know if they would see it that way, or it's the goldfish in water, it doesn't know it's in water, where they think they actually have convinced themselves that they're making money or doing the fruitful thing. And you see that in the article.
They limited this Wilson shoe. They won't say how many shoes they sold. They just like, oh, it sold out. Like, can you imagine, like, what if they're like, oh, we sold like 3,000 pairs of shoes? That's what our estimate is, right? Like, we don't think they had... They didn't even satisfy like the meager demand that there would be.
Well, and they're selling it for dirt cheap, which this is damning with faint praise in the article, that you can get it for 90 in kid sizes, and you can get it. I don't know the numbers off the top of my head,
There's
but
this 90 and 110, and then like 190 is what like a LeBron shoe goes for, I believe.
yeah, Matt Powell, who they often turn to, usually says very positive things about Nike, but there was a damning with faint praise in the New York Times article where he was saying, I think the Asia Wilson shoe will do well among women's basketball shoes. And he even established earlier, I'm paraphrasing, of course, that women's basketball shoes don't tend to sell that well because a lot of women buy men's basketball shoes, similar to how Caitlin Clark wears the Kobe's. So, and then they were saying in the article that, well, it's so cheap. It was just, so you're telling me that this shoe is, I don't even know, but I guess it's a world, Ryan.
It's got low margin and low volume.
It's a Potemkin shoe. It's crazy. It's absolutely crazy to me.
I don't want to be mean to Asia Wilson. Like, as annoying as I find her when I see her being interviewed, it just goes back to what I was saying before, where like, why can't they put out two women's shoes at once?
I mean, they probably can. They could figure that out. But here's the other thing: is when you make these points, people will push back and say, Nike stock price tanking, that has nothing to do with any of this cultural stuff. It's about the structural problems, the upheaval. They had to replace the CEO, the trade wars, this and that. They tried to become an online shop and got away from retail. All of it's true, but here's the thing. The people who screw up on the cultural front are often really bad at all the other stuff as well. And so when you're asking me this question, I go, yeah, they should be able to figure that out. But often the people who are operating under silly ideas and silly misapprehensions and prioritizing that above their main mandate, they're really bad at handling a lot of the logistics and everything else. So, yeah, I think that might be the answer, is that they are bad at stuff. And I feel rather emboldened in questioning them, because they've had such a poor run of it. And I feel as though there's such little criticism in the business press and broader sports media of this company that's been tanking for 5 years. And there's just an absence of going, what are they doing? Why aren't they doing this better?
Yeah, and they're going down in a market that is like up to, like, if you compare Nike's performance to the broad S&P index, like it looks even worse. It's not just that it's down like half, it's down half when, like, if you put $1 in the S&P 5 years ago, it's probably about doubled. So it's I don't know how to explain it other than the fact that they're clearly making bad decisions. And in our position in this world, as little as we may be, that's kind of our jobs to point them out.